The chalk outline was supposed to be a joke. That's what we all thought at first. Just a faded shape on cracked pavement behind an abandoned strip mall. The kind of thing kids draw when they're trying to scare each other or impress someone. No one expected it to feel wrong the moment we approached it. No one thought it would change the rest of our night, or that it would lead us to something we were never meant to find. It began the way all bad ideas begin. Someone dared someone else. In our case, it was Sam daring me and Layla to follow him behind the old Hilford market after sunset. Hilford had been closed for almost 12 years, and the whole building hovered somewhere between demolition and complete collapse. Even in daylight, it felt like a place that held its breath. But at night, it felt like something listening. We didn't go there to chase ghosts or mysteries. We went because there was nothing else to do in our small town, and boredom always pushed us into places we pretended we weren't afraid of. But the moment Sam said he found something weird behind the building, we felt that little electric pull of curiosity, the kind that overrides common sense. When we reached the back lot, the sky had already turned a deep blue, and the last bit of sunlight stretched across the broken concrete like it was trying to warn us not to go any further. Even though there was a small breeze, the air felt still around the lot, quiet in a way that didn't match the rest of the street. The chalk outline was right in the center. The edges were uneven, as if whoever drew it had shaky hands or kept glancing over their shoulder. It wasn't bright white like fresh chalk. It looked older, smudged, like it had been rained on and redrawn multiple times. And that was the first thing that bothered me. Why would anyone redraw a fake outline? Once is enough for a prank. But this looked maintained, preserved, almost intentional. Sam kept a few steps ahead of us, trying to act brave, even though I could tell by the way he kept rubbing his palms against his jeans that he was nervous. Layla walked slower, her eyes scanning every corner like she expected something to move. "I told you," Sam said, pointing at the outline. "It's weird, right? It wasn't here last week." "You sure?" I asked. "Positive." Layla crouched down beside the outline, but she didn't touch it. "This doesn't look like a kid drew it." "What does that even mean?" Sam asked. He was trying to lighten the mood, but his voice cracked a little. Layla didn't answer. She just kept staring at it, her face tight, like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. I didn't want to say it out loud, but the shape didn't look childish either. It was too precise, too carefully placed. And something about the way the chalk lines bent around the arms and legs made it look less like someone lay there voluntarily, and more like they were arranged. The longer I looked at it, the more a strange heaviness settled over me. Not fear exactly, just a sense that the line between something harmless and something real was much thinner than I had ever imagined. Sam kicked a piece of gravel toward the outline. "It's just chalk. Someone probably tried to freak people out." But even he didn't step closer. I finally did. I don't know why. Maybe because curiosity has always been louder than fear for me. Maybe because a part of me didn't believe in the kind of stories where chalk outlines lead to anything serious. But when I stood right over it, looking down, something fell off. My stomach tightened in a way I couldn't explain. Something about the shape, the position, the angle of the arms. It didn't look like a drawing. It looked like a memory. "Guys," I said softly, "I don't think this is a prank." Before they could answer, a sound echoed from the far end of the lot. Not loud, just a faint scuffing, like someone dragging their shoe across gravel. We all froze. No one moved. No one breathed. The sound came again, a quiet scrape, followed by another. Slow, uneven, like someone who didn't want to be heard, but wasn't doing a great job of hiding. "Who's there?" Sam called out, but even he whispered the words. No response. Just silence stretching, so long it felt unnatural. Then something shifted in the shadows behind the dumpster. Just a flicker, a shape, a hint of movement. Layla grabbed my wrist, and I could feel her pulse racing. Sam took a shaky step back. "Maybe we should go." But I couldn't take my eyes off the dark corner. Because as the last trace of daylight finally slipped away, something glinted near the outline. A small, metallic shine right at the edge of the chalk. I knelt slowly, ignoring the tension in the air. The object was half pressed into a crack in the pavement. I picked it up carefully. It was a key. Old. Rusted. With a tiny scratched number barely visible on its side. 34. And the moment I held it, the air around us felt different. Like the night exhaled. Before I could say anything, Layla whispered, "Guys, the outline just changed." Sam and I turned at the same time, and for a second I thought she was imagining things. But she wasn't. One of the chalk lines, the one forming the left arm, looked longer. It extended a little farther toward my shoe. Not a lot. Just enough to notice. Just enough to make my whole body go cold. "We need to leave," Layla said, pulling at my sleeve. But I couldn't move. Something in me needed to understand why the outline seemed wrong, why it didn't stay the same, and why someone would leave a rusted key right beside it. And then Sam whispered something that made the whole moment feel darker. "That outline, it looks fresh now." I looked again. He was right. The smudged, faded appearance was gone. The chalk looked sharper, brighter, almost like someone had redrawn it in the few seconds I wasn't watching. But we didn't hear anyone. We didn't see anyone. And the only thing in the lot with us was whatever was hiding behind that dumpster, the thing that made that soft scraping sound, the thing we still couldn't see. The hairs on my arms rose. The quiet didn't feel empty anymore. It felt crowded. Layla pulled on me again, stronger this time. "Please, let's go." But before we could move, another sound echoed across the lot, this time from behind us. A faint tapping, like someone knocking gently on concrete. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, steady. And a voice, not close, but not far either, carried through the shadows. "You're not supposed to be here." We spun around, but no one was there. Just darkness. Just cold night air. And the chalk outline that somehow looked even more defined than before. I tightened my grip on the rusted key without realizing it. And for a moment, I felt a strange pulse of fear mixed with something else, curiosity. I didn't know it then, but that key was going to lead us to answers we were never meant to find. Answers about the outline, about who drew it, about what really happened behind Hilford Market. And about why the shadow behind the dumpster wasn't the only thing watching us that night. But the worst part wasn't what we heard. It was what we didn't hear. Because after that voice spoke, after those taps faded, after all three of us stood frozen, waiting, the lot went silent again, too silent. A silence that didn't feel empty at all. It felt like something was waiting for us to make the next move. And when we finally took a step back, the chalk outline shifted again. Just slightly. Just enough to tell us one terrifying thing. Whatever had made that outline wasn't finished with us yet. The three of us stepped back at the same time, like our bodies decided for us. None of us spoke. None of us had to. The outline lying at our feet said enough just by existing. The way it brightened, the way the edges sharpened, the way it seemed to grow clearer every time we glanced away for even a second. Sam swallowed hard and whispered, maybe it's just our eyes adjusting. But he didn't believe that. I could hear it in his voice. I could also see the way he kept glancing over his shoulder, like he was counting how many steps it would take to reach the street. Layla was the only one brave enough to say what we were all thinking. Chalk doesn't move. It doesn't fix itself. The wind picked up slightly, brushing against the weeds pushing through the cracks in the pavement. Even that sound felt too loud. It was weird. Earlier, everything felt too quiet, like the lot was holding its breath. Now every tiny sound felt amplified, like something wanted us to listen. I kept staring at the key in my hand. It was colder now. Not from the weather. Just colder. Like it didn't want to be held. Or like it belonged somewhere dark, where sunlight couldn't reach it. It looked ordinary enough. A small metallic key, with rust on the edges and the number 34 scratched on one side. But the moment I touched it, the outline started shifting. That wasn't a coincidence. "Put the key back," Layla whispered. I didn't move. "What if it's important?" "Important." Sam repeated. "Why would it be important? It's a key from a storage locker or a basement door or something. It's nothing." But even he stepped closer to me as he said it, like staying near me made him feel safer. I looked at the outline again. It stretched now not in a dramatic way, but enough that the left foot looked slightly angled compared to before. Like whoever the outline belonged to had twisted that way at the last moment. My stomach twisted with it. Maybe we should call somebody, Sam said. Like the police, or... I didn't know someone. Layla shook her head. And tell them what? That we found chalk that moves when we aren't looking? They'll laugh at us. Sam looked at me, hoping I would disagree, hoping I'd say something logical that made everything normal again. But I couldn't. Because none of this felt logical. We don't have to tell them everything, I offered. We just say we found something strange. Or maybe someone was here, recently. Someone was here, Layla muttered under her breath. We all heard it. The scraping sound. The footsteps. The tapping. The voice that came from nowhere. We all heard it. I felt a chill crawl up my neck. The memory of that voice replayed itself in my mind, soft, calm, almost polite in a way that felt wrong. Like someone giving a warning they didn't expect us to obey. You're not supposed to be here. The words stuck to me like glue. Whoever said that didn't sound surprised. Or angry. They sounded resigned. Like they'd been waiting for us. We should go home, Layla said again, firmer this time. This place isn't right. She was right, and I knew it. But something kept my feet rooted to the ground. It wasn't bravery. It was curiosity mixed with a fear that if I left now, something important would stay behind. Something we weren't meant to find, but somehow stumbled into anyway. Sam nudged me. Come on, man. Seriously. Let's just go. But before any of us could move, a sudden gust of wind swept across the lot, stronger than before. So strong it kicked up dust and small pebbles around us. We all shielded our faces. And when the dust settled, the outline had shifted again. This time noticeably. The left hand was now reaching outward toward where I had stood just seconds earlier. Layla gasped softly. Sam cursed under his breath. I don't know what reaction I had, because everything inside me just froze. My whole body went cold. What is happening? Sam whispered. I didn't know. But I knew it wasn't just our imagination. This was real. As real as the key in my hand. As real as the fear in all of our throats. Layla stepped back until her shoulder touched the wall of the abandoned building. She never took her eyes off the outline. It's following you, she whispered. Following me? You picked up the key, she said. Right after that, everything changed. The outline didn't move before that. It didn't shift before that. Sam snapped. Don't say that. Layla didn't blink. You saw it too. The air around us somehow felt heavier, now thicker, like walking through a room someone had just left unexpectedly. Like the outline wasn't just a drawing marking a place. It was connected to something. Someone. And whatever that someone was, they were reaching for me. A soft creak echoed from the back door of the abandoned market. It sounded like a hinge moving slowly, like someone pushing the door open just enough to peek through. We all turned toward it at the same time. The door was cracked open. Just barely. It definitely wasn't open when we arrived. Nope. No. I'm not doing this, Sam whispered. He tugged on my arm again. We're leaving. Right now. But the moment he grabbed me, the door opened another inch. Very quietly. And then we heard it, softly, coming from inside the dark building. A faint metallic clink. Another. Like someone jingling keys. Slowly. Deliberately. And then the same calm voice from before spoke again. This time from inside. Bring it back. My grip tightened on the rusted key, so hard it dug into my palm. Sam stepped behind me, using me as a shield even though he tried to hide it. Layla's breathing grew quicker, shallow, controlled only because she was forcing herself not to panic. None of us moved. It felt like the night itself had stopped moving, like the whole world was waiting. Bring it back, the voice repeated a little louder. Layla shook her head violently. Stop. Don't listen. Put the key down. Just put it down and step away. But my hand wouldn't open. I tried loosening my fingers. They wouldn't move. It wasn't like they were locked, just resisting. Like something inside me didn't want to let the key go. I hated that feeling. The lot around us grew colder. Not the kind of cold that comes with nightfall. This was deeper, heavier, the kind of cold you feel in your bones. I exhaled shakily. We should leave. But when I finally forced my hand to open, the key slipped from my fingers. And didn't fall. It hung, suspended inches above the ground. Just floating. No wind. No strings. No tricks. Just hovering there like an invisible hand was holding it. Sam let out a choke sound. Nope. 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 Absolutely not. The key floated closer to the outline. Slowly. Carefully. Like someone was guiding it. And when it hovered directly above the chalk figure's chest, it dropped. The sound was too soft. Too gentle. Like it landed exactly where it was meant to. And the moment it touched the outline, every chalk line brightened at once. Too bright. Almost glowing. Filling the lot with a pale white light that spilled across the pavement like fog. We stumbled back, shielding our eyes. The light pulsed once. Twice. And then it faded just as quickly as it appeared. The outline returned to normal. No glow. No movement. No shifting. Just chalk. Perfect. Clean. Complete. But something had changed. The shape inside the outline didn't look empty anymore. It looked filled. Not with a body. Not with a person. But with something. A presence. A sense that the outline wasn't just where someone used to be. It was where something still was. And the worst part? It felt like it was looking at us. We all stood frozen, breathing hard, waiting for something else to happen. But the lot stayed still. The building stayed silent. The key stayed exactly where it had fallen. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. Once. Twice. 3 times. A notification. Then another. Then another. When I finally pulled it out, my hand shaking, the screen flashed with a single unknown message. No number. No contact name. Just one line. You shouldn't have touched it. The message on my phone didn't feel like a prank or some random glitch. It felt personal, direct, like whoever, or whatever, sent it had been waiting for that exact moment. The screen glowed in my shaking hand, the words stamped into my mind long after they faded. You shouldn't have touched it. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stared, half expecting another message to pop up. But none came. The phone dimmed and the lot went quiet again, settling into an uncomfortable stillness that made everything feel heavier than before. Sam took a step closer and whispered, "Who sent that?" "I don't know," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. "Check the number," Layla urged. "There is no number." "What do you mean, no number?" I turned the screen toward them. Where the phone should have shown a contact, it only showed empty space, like the message came from nowhere. Layla covered her mouth with her sleeve, her breathing uneven. "This is getting worse." I didn't argue. Something inside me had already accepted that this wasn't a coincidence. The outline, the key, the voice, the shifting chalk, and now a message that knew exactly what I had done. The whole thing felt like pieces of a puzzle we weren't supposed to solve, but somehow had been pulled into anyway. We backed away from the outline, inch by inch, like sudden movement might set something off. The outline remained still now, bright and perfect on the pavement, the key lying on its center like it had found its way home. The silence settled thick around us, and for a second, nothing happened. No scraping. No tapping. No voice. But the quiet wasn't comforting. It was the kind that came right before something else, like the story wasn't even close to finished with us. When we finally reached the edge of the lot, Sam grabbed my arm and said, "We're not telling anyone what we saw. Not yet." "What? Why?" I asked. "Because nobody is going to believe us," he said. "And because I don't even know how to explain it." He was right. It wasn't something we could describe to anyone without sounding like we made it up. Even saying it out loud between the 3 of us felt unreal. Layla nodded, keeping her eyes on the outline even as we stepped onto the sidewalk. "Let's just go home. We need time to think." But going home didn't solve anything. It only made the whole thing worse. Because the further we got from the lot, the stronger the feeling grew. Not fear, something else. Like we had left something unfinished, or something was following close behind us, even if we couldn't hear footsteps or breathing. Every shadow felt a little darker. Every quiet corner felt occupied. I tried shaking off the feeling, but it stuck to me like the cold. And the questions wouldn't stop spinning in my head. Why did the outline move? Why did the key float? Why did the voice sound like it knew who we were? And who sent that message? We didn't talk much on the walk back. The usual comfort of streetlights and passing cars didn't help. They only made the world feel smaller, like everything beyond the light was watching us. By the time we reached the intersection that split off to our homes, Sam finally broke the silence. We need to figure out where that key belongs. No, Layla said sharply. We need to forget it exists. We can't just forget it. Why not? Sam looked at me, like he expected me to back him up. But I didn't know what the right thing was. My head said to drop the whole thing. Pretend it never happened. But something deeper tugged at me. The same curiosity that pulled me toward the outline in the first place. It felt like walking away would only make the mystery chase us. It had a number on it, Sam said. 34. That means something. Or it means nothing, Layla argued. It could be from anything. A locker, a mailbox, a bike lock, whatever. And going back there again is a terrible idea. We don't have to go back tonight, Sam said. But we need to figure this out. I can't sleep without knowing what that outline is. Sleep. Layla gave a half-nervous laugh. You think any of us are sleeping after this? She wasn't wrong. I looked toward the direction of Hilford Market, even though it was blocks away and completely out of sight. The image of the glowing chalk, the floating key, the shifting shape, it all burned into my mind like it was waiting behind my eyelids. We said goodnight, but there was no comfort in it. Just a quiet agreement that none of us knew what to do next. When I reached my house, the porch light flickered once as I stepped onto the first stair. It never flickered. Not once in 3 years. But tonight, it did, like something passed in front of it. Or through it. Inside, everything felt normal. Familiar. Safe. But the safety felt thin, like a layer of paint over something deeper beneath the surface. I locked the door, checked it twice, then sat on the edge of my bed, trying to make sense of everything. My phone buzzed again. A single vibration. A notification. I hesitated before picking it up, afraid it would be another message from nowhere. It wasn't. Just a text from Sam. Let's meet tomorrow. Same place we always hang out. Noon. Another text followed. Don't tell anyone what happened. Not yet. Before I could reply, another message came through, but this one wasn't from Sam. It came from the same blank sender as before. The same empty space where a number should be. This time, the message was longer. You left it where it belongs. But it's not done with you. Don't ignore it. I dropped the phone into my lap, my breath catching for a moment as a chill crawled through me. The idea that something or someone knew exactly what we were doing made the fear settle deeper. I turned off my bedroom light and lay down, hoping exhaustion would pull me into sleep. But it didn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the outline, the shifting chalk, the floating key, the door creaking open, and that calm voice echoing in the darkness. You're not supposed to be here. Sometime deep in the night, just as I began to drift off, I heard something soft outside my window. A light scraping. Slow. Faint. Almost like chalk dragging across pavement. I sat up instantly, my heart pounding, the darkness suddenly feeling too close. The sound came again. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. I forced myself to get out of bed and move toward the window. My legs felt heavy, like they wanted me to stay put, but curiosity pushed me forward. I pulled the curtain back just enough to look outside. The street was empty, silent, still. Nothing moved. No people. No animals. Not even the wind. But right there on the sidewalk, in the glow of the street lamp, was something new. A small chalk line. Fresh. Bright. Leading away from my house. Almost like it wanted me to follow it. And, as I stared at it, another faint buzz lit up my phone behind me. Another message from the same sender. Just 3 words this time. Don't be late. The chalk line outside my house didn't look like something accidental or random. It was too clean, too bright, too deliberate. It reminded me of that outline on the lot, like it was made with the same steady hand, the same strange purpose. I stared at it for a long time, hoping it was just my tired mind playing tricks on me. But the line stayed. It wasn't fading. It wasn't smudged. It looked like it had been drawn just seconds before I reached the window. I didn't go outside. I didn't even open the door. Something inside me knew that whatever drew that line wanted a reaction. It wanted me to follow it. And whatever waited at the end of it wasn't something I was ready to face. So I backed away from the window slowly, as if moving too fast might invite something I couldn't see. Sleep didn't come that night. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow stretched longer. I kept checking my phone, afraid another message would show up. None came, which somehow made everything worse. It felt like the sender was waiting, just like the outline had waited. Like the story wasn't finished with me yet. By morning, the chalk line outside looked faded, like it had aged a whole day in just a few hours. I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. My stomach felt tight the whole walk to meet Sam and Layla at our usual spot, a little park behind the old library. It wasn't crowded, which made it feel like the right place to talk. Sam was already there, pacing back and forth. Layla sat on a bench, her eyes fixed on the ground. "You both got home okay?" I asked quietly. Sam snorted. "Define okay." Layla glanced up, dark circles under her eyes. "Did either of you hear anything last night?" I hesitated. "Maybe. I'm not sure." Sam frowned. "What does maybe mean?" "It means I'm not sure it was real," I said. "I heard scraping outside. Like chalk. And when I looked there was a chalk line on the sidewalk." Layla stood up immediately. "No. Don't say that. Tell me you're joking." "I'm not." Sam ran a hand through his hair, muttering, "This is getting out of control." But even he didn't seem surprised. He looked more like someone who expected something weird to happen and was just hoping he was wrong. I told them everything. The sound outside my window, the chalk line, the message telling me not to be late. They listened without interrupting, the tension winding tighter between us with every detail. Layla finally whispered, "It's connected to the key. It has to be." "Or the outline," Sam added. "Or that voice." "Or all of it," I said, trying not to sound scared even though the fear sat heavy in my chest. We were quiet for a moment. Not because we didn't have anything to say, but because none of the things we wanted to say felt safe to speak out loud. Then Sam pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "I went back last night." "Back where?" I asked, even though I already knew. "The lot." "Are you serious?" Layla snapped. "What were you thinking?" "I wasn't thinking," he admitted. "I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that voice in my head, and I needed to see if it was still there." "What was still there?" I asked. He unfolded the paper and handed it to us. It wasn't a note or a message. It was a drawing. Rough, made with a pencil pressed too hard. The lines were shaky, uneven. It looked like a human shape, but not like the outline we saw. This one looked bent, twisted slightly like the figure had been leaning forward. But that wasn't the part that sent chills down my arms. In the drawing, the figure wasn't alone. A second shape stood beside it, taller, shadow-like, with long, narrow arms reaching toward the first figure. "I saw it," Sam said quietly. "Not the main outline. That one looked normal. But next to it, there was a mark. Not chalk. Like dust moved into a shape. I don't know." I drew it as fast as I could. "It looks like someone standing over it," I said. "More like leaning toward it," Layla whispered. "Or watching it." Sam nodded. "That's what I thought too. Like it wasn't just an outline of someone who used to be there. Something else was there with it." None of us spoke for a while. The park felt too open suddenly, like anything could be watching us from behind the trees or the buildings. I folded the drawing and gave it back to him, but the image burned into my mind. "We need to figure out what happened in that lot," Sam said. "People don't draw outlines for nothing." "Could be old," I suggested. He shook his head. "It wasn't old. It looked fresh yesterday. And whatever I saw last night, it wasn't something someone drew." "We're not going back," Layla insisted. "Not until we understand what we're dealing with." I wanted to agree with her. I wanted to go home, lock my door, pretend none of this was happening. But something about the outline, the key, the message, the chalk outside my house, all of it felt connected to something we couldn't just walk away from. It doesn't want us to ignore it, I said quietly. Both of them looked at me. You sound like you know something, Sam said. Last night's message, I said. It said, don't ignore it. Layla sank onto the bench again. I hate this. I really do. I know, I said. But we need answers. Sam nodded. Then we start with the key. There's a number on it. 34. That means it belongs somewhere. Or it used to, Layla murmured. We won't go alone, I said. Whatever we do it together. They didn't argue with that. But before we could plan anything else, a familiar vibration buzzed in my pocket. A message. My stomach dropped. Both of them watched as I unlocked my phone, bracing themselves. The same blank sender. The same empty contact. The message was short. You're late. My pulse hammered. It knows we're talking. Sam grabbed the phone, his face pale. What does it want? Before I could answer, another message arrived. Follow the line. I froze. The chalk line outside my house. Layla shook her head quickly. No, we are not doing that. We're not following anything. But a part of me already knew we would. Because the conflict wasn't just about the outline anymore. It was about why us. Why we were chosen. Why the key appeared. Why the chalk moved. Why the messages kept coming. Something wanted us involved. And whatever it wasn't done with us yet. The air inside the house felt heavier than before, almost as if the walls were holding their breath with us. Every step we took made the old wooden floor creak, and each creak sounded like it was trying to warn us to turn back. But none of us did. Something about the chalk outline, the strange energy around this place, and the things we had already seen made it impossible to walk away now. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It felt personal. Jared moved ahead of us, slowly sweeping the beam of his flashlight across the hallway. The dust floating in the air made the light look like it was cutting through fog. I walked behind him, and Mia stayed close to my side. She had barely spoken since we came back inside. Every so often, I saw her glance over her shoulder, as if she expected someone to be standing right behind her. We reached the end of the hallway, where a narrow staircase led to the second floor. It looked even darker than the rest of the house, as if the shadows were thicker there. Jared paused, then looked back at us. He didn't say anything, but the question was clear. Do we go up? I nodded slowly, even though my stomach twisted. Mia hesitated, breathing shallowly, then stepped closer to the stairs. We started climbing, each step groaning softly under our weight. The air grew colder the higher we went, and by the time we reached the top, it felt almost chilly, like a window had been left open somewhere. The hallway upstairs was shorter, but even more unsettling. There were 3 doors, 2 on the left and 1 straight ahead. The one at the far end was slightly open, and a faint light flickered inside, like something reflecting our flashlights even though none were pointed that way. Jared lifted his chin toward it, signaling for us to follow. As we approached, I felt a shift in the air again, subtle but noticeable. It was the same strange sensation we felt downstairs near the chalk outline. Like static. Like movement without sound. I swallowed and tried to keep my breathing steady. When Jared pushed the door open, the light inside stopped flickering. Everything went still. The room was small, probably once a kid's bedroom. The wallpaper was peeling in long strips, and the shelves on the wall were crooked, holding nothing but dust. But the thing that made us freeze wasn't the room itself. It was the small chalk outline on the floor in the center. It wasn't large, not like the one downstairs. This one looked like it belonged to a child. Mia covered her mouth instantly, and Jared let out a shaky breath. This wasn't here before, he whispered, and he was right. We had looked inside this room earlier when searching the house. It had been empty, completely empty. My hands felt cold as I stepped closer. The chalk was fresh. I could tell from how clean the lines looked, untouched by dust. Whoever drew it, or whatever drew it, had done it recently. Very recently. Why are there 2? Mia whispered, her voice trembling. Who are they for? Before any of us could answer, a soft creak echoed from the hallway behind us. Not the settling of old wood. This sounded like an actual footstep. Jared spun around, flashlight raised. The hallway was empty. But we had all heard it. We left the room quickly and regrouped in the hallway as the feeling of being watched intensified. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was subtle, slow, like something gradually stepping closer, though we couldn't see it. We checked the other upstairs rooms, but they were empty. No more chalk. No more clues. Just that heavy silence. Then Mia pointed at the corner of the hallway. I followed her gaze and saw a thin, dragging mark on the floorboards, white, powdery, and unmistakable. A trail of chalk dust. Jared crouched beside it, brushing his fingers lightly against the residue. This wasn't here before either. The trail led back toward the stairs, meaning that whatever made it had moved after we came up. We followed the trail slowly, hearts pounding, until we reached the top step. The chalk dust stopped there, as if whatever left it had either vanished or was now somewhere below. We stood frozen, listening. At first, there was nothing, just our breathing. Then, seconds later, the faint sound of something sliding across the floor reached us from the first level. A slow scraping sound, like chalk being dragged. Mia grabbed my arm, her grip tight enough to hurt. Jared whispered, "It's downstairs." Again. We descended carefully, each step making our nerves tighten even more. By the time we reached the bottom floor, the scraping sound had stopped. The silence felt heavier than ever. My heartbeat seemed too loud for the moment. I almost thought whatever was here could hear it. When we stepped into the living room again, Mia gasped. The original chalk outline, the one we first saw, was no longer empty. Something had been drawn inside it. At first, I thought it was just a smudge. But as we got closer, I realized it was a shape, a mark, a symbol, something that hadn't been there earlier. It wasn't violent or graphic, nothing that crossed any lines, but it was unsettling because it looked intentional, like a message. A single circle drawn right in the center of the outline. Jared crouched near it, shining his flashlight in small circles. "This wasn't here when we came in." "No," I whispered, and whatever left it knew we were upstairs. Mia backed away slowly, shaking her head. "Someone's messing with us. They have to be. No way chalk just moves on its own." Jared stood and walked toward the doorway, scanning the room with his flashlight. "Then where are they hiding?" We looked everywhere. I didn't say anything, because I couldn't shake the feeling that the house didn't need a place to hide someone. Some spaces felt wrong in a way that didn't make sense. Like walls shouldn't echo the way they did. Like corners shouldn't feel colder than the rooms around them. Like the outline wasn't just a shape, it was a marker. A reminder. As we debated our next move, another noise sounded from the hallway, soft, barely audible, but enough to make us turn toward it instinctively. This time it didn't sound like a footstep or chalk dragging. It sounded like a whisper. Just one breath. Then silence. Jared tightened his grip on the flashlight, and Mia stepped closer to me. None of us spoke, but we all felt the same thing. The house wasn't empty. And it wasn't done with us yet. We moved slowly toward the hallway, each of us listening carefully. The air grew colder again, and I could feel a faint vibration under my feet, like the floorboards were reacting to something unseen. I didn't know what it was, but it pushed us forward with a strange mix of fear and curiosity. When we reached the hallway, the whisper came again, clearer this time, but still too faint to understand. It drifted toward us like fog, coming from deeper inside the house. Not threatening, not aggressive, but unnerving in a way that made my chest tighten. We followed the sound, each step pulling us closer toward something we could feel, but couldn't explain. The light from our flashlights shook just enough to show how nervous we were, but none of us turned back. The suspense wrapped tighter around us with every breath, and deep down, I knew the next thing we discovered would change everything. But we weren't prepared for what waited in the next room, or how it connected to the chalk outlines, or why the house felt almost alive. We stepped forward again, and that was when the light flickered. Just once, but enough to make all of us stop breathing. Something was coming, and there was no turning back now. The flicker lasted less than a second, but the darkness that followed felt heavier than before, like the house was holding something back. Jared tapped the flashlight casing with his palm, trying to steady the beam, but for a moment it refused to come back on. When it finally did, the light looked weaker, thinner, as if something had drained the energy out of it. Mia stepped closer to me, her voice low but tense. "Did you feel that?" The air changed again. She was right. It was cold before, but now it felt colder in a different way, sharper, like walking through an invisible curtain. And as we moved further down the hallway, that invisible line seemed to stretch behind us, gently closing in, as if the house didn't want us going back. Jared walked ahead, carefully. His light skimmed the walls, and that's when we noticed something new, something that hadn't been there at all in the earlier search. Chalk marks. Thin, uneven strokes across the wallpaper. Not outlines, not shapes, just simple lines, maybe the height of a child's hand. They formed a kind of path leading toward the closed door at the far right of the hallway. A door we hadn't opened yet. A door we thought was jammed earlier. The chalk line ended right at its edge, almost like someone had dragged their finger along the wall until the very last step before going in. Mia whispered, "No one came up here except us." "I know," I said, but saying it didn't make it any easier to believe. Jared reached for the doorknob slowly, and to our surprise, it turned easily. The door creaked open with a quiet shudder, as though it had been held shut not by something physical, but by something else entirely. The beam from Jared's flashlight swept inside the room. It was completely different from the others, much cleaner, less dusty, as if it had been used more recently. The floor was bare except for a single wooden chair placed in the middle. On the seat lay a piece of chalk. Fresh, bright white, new. We didn't touch it, but the moment our lights landed on it, the floorboards beneath the chair gave a slight tremor. Not like something shifting upstairs. More like something shifting under the ground. A hollow vibration. Mia wrapped her arms around herself. "This doesn't make sense. Why put a chair here? Why the chalk?" Jared stepped closer, shining the light around the room. There were faint imprints on the floor, circular smudges, as if the chair had been moved around many times, almost in a pattern. "It's like someone kept dragging it back to this exact spot," he murmured. "Or something," I added quietly. Before we could explore further, a sound rose from beneath the floorboards, a dull thud, then another. Rhythmic, like someone knocking faintly from under the house. Mia jumped. "No. Nope, no. That's not the wind. That's not the house settling." Jared crouched next to the chair and placed his hand on the floor. The thuds grew slightly louder, steady enough to make us all step back. It wasn't violent, nothing breaking, nothing harmful, just unnerving, like an attempt to signal us. A message. A warning. Or worse, an invitation. I stared at the floor, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think something's under there?" Before they could answer, the knocking stopped abruptly. The silence snapped back, so suddenly it made the room feel smaller, tighter. We looked at one another, and in that quiet, Mia noticed something I hadn't yet, something that made her eyes widen. "The chalk," she whispered. "It's moved." She was right. The piece that had been sitting neatly in the center of the chair was now resting on the very edge, like it had rolled or been nudged by unseen fingers. Jared shook his head slowly. "No way. I was watching it." We all were, and none of us had seen it move. A new realization settled over us, quiet but heavy. The chalk outline downstairs, the smaller one upstairs, the symbol drawn inside the first outline, none of it was random. It wasn't someone playing a prank. It wasn't graffiti or vandalism. It was communication. Something was reaching out. Not with voices we could hear clearly, not with anything physical we could see, but through chalk, simple marks, silent messages drawn by something that didn't show itself. Mia's voice trembled. "Why chalk? Why that? Why us?" "I think," I said slowly, "we're not supposed to see what made the marks. We're only supposed to see the marks themselves." It wasn't comforting. It wasn't meant to be. The room grew colder again, and this time the chill carried a strange feeling. Not danger exactly, not harm, but urgency. Like something was trying to push us toward a truth we weren't ready for. Then, the second plot twist unfolded in the simplest, yet most chilling way. Jared pointed his flashlight at the wall near the door. "Guys, look." There were more chalk marks, but these weren't random like the ones in the hallway. These formed a clear line, almost like arrows, pointing downward, to the floor, to the source of the knocking, to whatever was underneath us. Mia swallowed hard. "It wants us to go down there." We exchanged a look, and for the first time, fear wasn't the only thing between us. There was something else. Curiosity mixed with responsibility. If this place wasn't abandoned in the way we thought, if someone had been living under the house, or trapped, or signaling for help, what if the outline wasn't marking a death? What if it was marking where someone used to be, before they disappeared? We stepped out of the room slowly, hearts pounding, but minds racing in a different way now. The chalk trails, the whispering, the vibrations, none of it felt random. It was building towards something bigger, something hidden deeper in the house. As we moved back into the hallway, the lights flickered again, not off, but subtly dimmer, like the house was preparing for something. And then we saw the newest change. The original chalk outline downstairs wasn't the only one anymore. Another had appeared beside it. Same shape, same size. 2 outlines now. Mia's voice cracked. "It's duplicating, but why?" Jared stared, speechless. My stomach tightened as the realization hit me hard. The house wasn't just showing us what happened. It was warning us what could happen next. The stakes had changed. And whatever waited beneath us was no longer just part of the mystery. It was now part of the danger. And we still had no idea how close we were to becoming the next outline the house wanted to draw. The second outline on the floor stopped all of us cold. It wasn't there earlier, and the lines looked as fresh as if someone had just drawn them seconds before we walked down the stairs. The house felt different now, not just eerie, but expectant, like it was waiting for us to finally understand something it had been trying to show us from the moment we arrived. Jared moved toward the outline slowly, his flashlight trembling just a little. "It's not random," he whispered. "It's never been random." Mia's breathing was shaky. "So what does 2 of them mean? Why 2? I stared at the fresh outline, the chalk dust still scattered loosely around it. It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a message. It felt like the house was finally drawing us a map, and we were standing at the final piece. The knocking under the floor resumed, soft but steady, almost like a heartbeat now. Not frantic, not angry, just constant, urging us, guiding us. Jared crouched and pressed his ear to the floor again, then looked up with wide eyes. "It's not random knocking. It's spaced out like a signal. Someone's down there. Or something." Mia swallowed hard, gathering every bit of courage left inside her. "So we need to get under the house." We moved toward the small cellar door near the kitchen, the one we hadn't bothered to check earlier because it looked swollen shut from years of disuse. But now, as Jared pulled on the handle, the door opened with almost no resistance, like it had been waiting. The air inside the cellar was cold, but a distant light flickered deeper in the darkness, barely visible. It wasn't a bulb or any man-made light. It looked more like a reflection, like light bouncing off something metallic. We walked down the narrow stairs carefully, each step creaking but steady. The moment we reached the ground, the knocking stopped. The silence was different here, thicker, heavier. We could hear our own breaths, the rustle of dust under our shoes, and a faint hum in the air, almost like something vibrating faintly through the walls. Then our flashlights landed on it. A metal hatch built into the ground. Old, rusted, but not ancient. Someone had used it, maybe even recently. And right in the center of the hatch, drawn in chalk, was a small circle, the same symbol inside the first outline upstairs. "Open it," I whispered. Jared hesitated, then gripped the handle. To our surprise, it lifted easily, without screeching, without resistance. The moment the hatch opened, a cool wave of air drifted upward. Not foul, not dusty, just cold. And then we heard it. A voice. Soft, faint, almost like an echo. But this time, it wasn't a whisper from the walls. It was coming from below. "Help." Mia covered her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. It wasn't aggressive or alarming. It was weak, tired. We aimed our flashlights down through the hatch and saw a small room beneath us, a crawlspace, but larger than expected, with old wooden beams and dusty storage boxes scattered around. And, in the far corner, leaning against the wall, was a figure. Not harmful looking. More like someone who had been trapped. A man, thin and pale, blinking slowly against the flashlight beams. Jared climbed down first, followed by me, then Mia. Our flashlights lit the space enough to see the truth clearly. The man was alive. Exhausted, but alive. He raised a hand weakly when he saw us. "You heard me finally." Jared crouched beside him. "We're here now. We're going to help you. Just tell us what happened." The man exhaled shakily. I kept trying to mark the floor, to signal through the boards. Chalk was the only thing down here. Chalk. Everything made sense in a rush, the outlines, the trails, the symbols, the lines on the wall. Each mark wasn't meant to scare us. It was him, trying desperately to communicate. "Someone locked me down here," he whispered. "A long time ago. I couldn't get out. I kept drawing, knocking, waiting." Mia knelt beside him, tears in her voice. "But why the outlines? Why two of them?" The man's expression softened with a sadness deeper than fear. "The first outline was where I thought I was going to die. I drew it to mark the spot, so if anyone ever found me, they'd understand someone was here. The second one," he looked toward us, eyes heavy with meaning. "The second one was when I heard you upstairs. I thought there were two people coming to help me. And then everything clicked so painfully it made my chest tighten. Two outlines. Not warnings. Not threats. Hope." We helped the man climb out of the hatch, slow and careful. He leaned on Jared's shoulder as we guided him up the cellar stairs and into the living room. For the first time since we entered the house, the air felt lighter, as if some invisible weight had been lifted. But just when we thought everything had finally made sense, something shifted. The chalk circle inside the original outline on the floor was gone. Erased. Not smudged. Not brushed away by us. Cleanly removed. Mia stepped back instantly. "How did that happen?" "None of us touched it." I looked at the hatch, the cellar door, then the outlines again. Something didn't fit. The man was real. The chalk marks were real. But the outlines, those perfect, full-body shapes, weren't something he could have drawn from under the house. They were too precise, too large, too placed. He only ever drew symbols and lines, not outlines. Before I could speak, the man whispered behind us, his voice trembling for the first time. "I only drew the small marks. I never drew those outlines." All three of us turned slowly toward him. His face was pale, eyes wide. "I thought you drew those." A cold wave crawled up my spine. The outlines weren't from him. And the missing chalk circle, the one that vanished without a trace, felt like a final message, one we didn't understand yet. Jared swallowed hard. "If you didn't draw the outlines, then who did?" The man shook his head slowly. "I think someone else was trapped here before me." The room felt colder again. Not dangerous, but heavy, like a presence passing through, acknowledging it had finally been heard, finally been seen. Then we understood. The outlines weren't warnings, not threats, not predictions. They were memories of someone who never made it out. And as we stood in the quiet house, helping the man out the door and into the fresh air, the last twist settled over us with a quiet chill. The outlines were drawn by someone long gone, but the erasing of the circle, the final mark, was done right as we saved him. A silent way of saying, one story is finished, but another still lingers in this house. The real mystery wasn't how the man survived. It was who left the message for us to find him, and why their own outline remained behind. When we finally stepped outside, the air felt strangely warm compared to the cold stillness inside the house. The sky had turned a soft gray, the kind that made everything look a little washed out and quiet, as if the world was trying to reset itself after everything that had happened. The man we rescued sat on the old porch steps, breathing slowly, like each breath meant something new. For the first time in who knows how long, he wasn't surrounded by darkness or chalk symbols or the weight of a house pressing down on him. He was free. Jared handed him a bottle of water from our car and sat beside him. Mia hovered nearby, still shaken, but calmer now that the immediate danger was behind us. I stood near the doorway, looking back inside the house, trying to make sense of everything. The chalk outlines felt different now. Not frightening, not mysterious. More like reminders, silent imprints of people who had been here before, leaving their stories behind in the only way they could. The man finally spoke after a few minutes. His voice was quiet but clearer. I don't know how long I was down there. It felt like forever. Time wasn't normal in that place. We're just glad we heard you, Mia said gently. He looked up at her, then at all of us. Most people would have run the moment they saw those outlines. Or the chalk markings. You three stayed. You listened. Jared shrugged, but there was a weight behind his words. It felt like someone was trying to tell us something. Like the house wasn't just haunted. More like it was holding on to pieces of the past. The man nodded slowly. It was. I think whoever came before me, they were trying to help me. Or warn me. Or guide someone to me. Those outlines weren't mine. But the symbols, the small ones, those were me trying to reach out. I finally stepped away from the doorway and joined the group. Do you know who locked you in there? He hesitated before shaking his head. No. I don't remember much from before waking up in that space. Everything before that is blurry. Faces, voices. The reason I was even in the house, it's like a fog. Maybe one day it'll come back. But for now, I just know I survived. And someone wanted me, too. It wasn't the neat, clean answer we hoped for, but it was enough. Sometimes resolutions weren't about knowing everything. They were about knowing enough to move forward. As we talked a little more, something inside the house made a soft sound. Not the heavy knocks from before. Not whispers. Just the faint shifting of air. Almost like a quiet exhale. A goodbye. We didn't go back inside. We didn't need to. The story the house wanted to tell had already been told. We helped the man to his feet and walked him slowly to our car. He moved weakly, but with a determination that hadn't been there earlier. The sunlight caught his face, making him blink a few times, as though the brightness was something unfamiliar. He didn't ask where we were taking him. He didn't even ask who we were. He just trusted us, the same way we somehow trusted the signs inside the house. As we drove toward town to get him help, Mia kept looking back at the old house shrinking behind us. Do you think it's really over? She asked softly. Jared glanced at the rearview mirror. For him, yeah. For whoever made those outlines. I think they finally got what they were waiting for. I looked too, watching the house fade behind the trees. It didn't feel threatening anymore. It didn't feel cold or strange. It just felt old, like a chapter finally closing. The chalk outline mystery, the whispers, the vibrations, the strange darkness. All of it came down to someone trapped beneath that house, and another presence trying desperately to help him from beyond. It was unsettling, yes, but also strangely comforting. Because whatever spirit or memory was in that house, it didn't want to harm anyone. It wanted the truth to be found. And it wanted the man to be saved when he couldn't save himself. When we reached town, we brought him to a small clinic. The staff didn't question much when they saw his condition. They were more focused on helping him than asking 1,000 questions. We gave them the basics and promised to come back later to check on him. Outside the clinic, we leaned against the car in silence for a moment, each of us processing everything in our own way. Finally, Jared spoke. We should go back someday. Maybe find out more about the house. Learn who those outlines belong to. Mia shook her head slowly. Not now. Not anytime soon. That house, it's been carrying stories for too long. Let it rest. I agreed. Some mysteries didn't need to be solved all the way. Some stories were meant to stay partly hidden, especially when they belonged to people who never had a chance to speak for themselves. The chalk outlines, the messages, the knocking, they weren't about fear or danger. They were about connection, communication, and the need to be found. That night, back at home, I couldn't stop thinking about the final moment in the house. The chalk circle disappearing as we helped the man up. It felt too intentional to be coincidence. Like someone unseen was watching, waiting for the right moment to erase the last mark and signal that their purpose had been fulfilled. A quiet closure. A final message. Even now, when I think about that house, I don't think of it as haunted or cursed. I think of it as a place where stories got stuck, where unfinished chapters lingered on old floorboards and in forgotten crawlspaces. A place that wasn't dangerous. It just needed someone to listen. And somehow, we were the ones who answered. The man we rescued eventually recovered enough to live on his own. He kept in touch, often thanking us, even though we told him 100 times that anyone would have done the same. But deep down, all of us knew the truth. Not everyone would have stayed. Not everyone would have followed chalk lines across walls or walked toward something unknown in the dark. Sometimes being in the right place at the right time isn't luck, it's purpose. As for the house, it remained standing, quiet as ever. Locals still avoid it, claiming it feels strange or off, but none of them know the full story. None of them know the significance of the chalk outlines or the reason behind the symbols or the quiet voice under the floor. But we do. And because of that, those outlines will never be forgotten. Sometimes the past reaches out through the simplest things, a mark on the floor, a single line of chalk, a faint whisper in the walls. Sometimes the warnings aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to lead you where you're needed most. That house may always hold its secrets, but at least one life was saved. One story found its ending, and one lost voice was finally heard after all the years of silence. And for us, that was enough. The chalk outline mystery ended not with fear, but with understanding. Not with danger, but with a rescue. Not with ghosts, but with the echo of someone who simply wanted the truth to come to light. And even though the house still stands in the quiet of the woods, I know its story is over. At least the part that belonged to us.